Welcome back to the Sailing News Show. Today we're going to be discussing Sir Ben Ainslie's SailGP comeback and the big talking points from SailGP Bermuda. We'll be discussing the carnage caused by the new baby wing sails, whether the format of SailGP works, and of course the big question on everyone's lips. Should SailGP be measuring speed in knots or kilometers per hour? Before we get into it, I've just got a quick update on the channel. Many of you know that over the last few weeks I've been contemplating whether to change the channel name and what to. A lot of you gave me feedback, which I'm really grateful for, and the winning name was Fast Forward Sailing. So the plan is, on the next video, the channel name won't be Online Sail Coach, it will be Fast Forward Sailing. So make a note to look out for Fast Forward Sailing and not Online Sail Coach when you're browsing through YouTube. So, with that said, on to the news. Sir Ben Ainslie and Great Britain win first final in Bermuda. The British team overcame a significant challenge from defending champions Australia and their helm Tom Slingsby. Season 2 of SailGP now moves to Italy for the second SailGP of the season at the beginning of June. The victory in the three-boat winner-takes-all final means the British team sit on top of the season standings after the first of the 8 global SailGP events, which culminate in a $1 million winner-takes-all final in San Francisco next March. So here's the results after the first event. The top team ends up with 10 points, second team 9 points, and so on. So an advantage to the Brits, but it's only by 1 point, so it's really all to play for with 8 more events to go. Even Jimmy Spithill and Nathan Outridge, who had an unfortunate collision which didn't help any of them, you can't write them off at this stage. They certainly got the time to make a comeback. Interestingly, here it mentions that a unique feature of SailGP is that every team has access to the other team's data, so the chance to study and gain lessons from your competitors is always there, and potentially that was a reason why Ainslie was able to improve so quickly on the second day, because their manoeuvres and their boat speed were noticeably better on the second day. I'll be interested in getting your thoughts. Do you like the openness of this competition, or do you prefer the design rivalry in the America's Cup? Moving down the article, Ainslie says, "It was a cracking race," talking about the medal race. "It was awesome. We want to be here going up against these guys, and I want to give huge credit to the team. We worked hard to analyse what was going on with our coach and Hannah Mills." Hannah Mills, for those who don't know, is the British 470 gold and silver medalist, who's been the female athlete on the British team, not on the boat, but still helping out in the background. It's a big team effort, and it's Neil's birthday too. Now, that's Neil Hunter. I remember him from my days on the British sailing team, so it's nice to see him walk away with a victory on his birthday. Moving on, let's talk about Pete Burling and the Kiwi team. This was their first SailGP event, and he describes it as a baptism of fire. Their best result during the first day was a 6th place finish. With just 1 day of training on their F50 before the competition commenced, the fact that Burling said they struggled to keep the boat under control was perhaps understandable. The other teams in SailGP Season 2 will not be discounting the Kiwis, as over the course of Day 2, Burling and his team showed they were getting to grips with their F50. Needless to say, it will not take a sailor of his calibre long to improve, especially considering the open data sharing that happens in SailGP. And by the second event of the season in Italy, it could be a different story for New Zealand's SailGP team. So I think this first event in Bermuda was fun. There was a lot of drama, but that was partly because the teams hadn't been racing for a while. Some of the teams had never raced. They were getting used to new equipment. I think Italy will be a fascinating watch for different reasons. All the teams would have had a bit more practice, they'll have had more time to look at the data, and hopefully 2 of the top teams won't take each other out. I think it's anyone's guess who will be at the top of the leaderboard in that event. As I said before, I don't think I've ever seen a more competitive sailing event. We really have the creme de la creme of sailing talent. So just a quick interlude. If you haven't already, if you can leave a thumbs up below this video, it really helps the channel, as the more people like it, the more people YouTube will push this video out to. It only takes a second, it's completely free, and it really has a big impact on the channel and helps me keep putting out videos like this. So with that said, on with the video. Let's have a look at the post-event interviews from Ben Ainslie and Tom Slingsby.
What an amazing day of racing. It was, for us coming off Saturday and really struggling with some poor races, we had to pull it out of the bag today, so I'm really proud of the team and how they performed. getting a win in the first race, and then just about doing enough in the second race to get us through into that final. And then what an incredible race against Team Australia. They were really pushing hard. They've been on form all weekend, and yeah, it was great to come out on top. So great team effort.
Yeah, for sure there's some frustration. We sailed so well today, and we sailed so well the whole event, but we knew the rules when we signed up. We know that we've got to win that last race. It's just a little frustrating.
So just pausing it here, obviously Australia raced a great regatta and they won far and away more races than Ainslie, who ended up winning it. But because the last race was a winner takes all between the top 3 teams, Ainslie was able to win that and walk away with the event. So I'd be interested to get your thoughts. Do you think that's fair? It's certainly exciting. I think we'll always have a debate of whether we should do medal races or not. Obviously you've got that trade-off between entertainment value and fairness. Sailing is a sport that no matter how good you are, you can always have a bad race, and that's why it's always been run over a regatta of several races. But yeah, as I mentioned, sailing is entertainment for a large part, and having a winner-takes-all medal race certainly adds to the drama and probably increases the viewership of the event, which is great for the sport. So just another point on the format of the racing, I thought it made for an interesting dynamic having 3 boats in the final. Doing that, it sort of sets itself apart from the traditional 2-boat match race. It means you can't be fully focusing on just one boat. You have to make that decision of how much to sail your own race, and personally I think it's more exciting to watch. But it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this. Do you prefer the traditional 2-boat match race? Or do you think the 3-boat match race is a good thing and perhaps should be extended to events outside of SailGP? Personally, I really like the fact that SailGP is trying to think differently and put these new ideas out there into the sport, even if it's not popular with the sailors, such as using kilometers per hour for the speed measurement. But I think the only way we innovate and get better, and the only way we'll make sailing a great spectator sport, is by trying new things out. And to try things, you have to be willing to get things wrong. And SailGP don't seem afraid of that. The next thing I wanted to discuss was the knots issue. Now, if you watched the live event on YouTube over the weekend and were watching the live chat, you'll have noticed that, perhaps surprisingly, for what might be the most competitive and exhilarating sailing event ever seen, the chat was filled with a debate on whether the speed measurement for the boats and the wind speed should be in knots or kilometers per hour. The SailGP broadcast team didn't seem to know which way they were going. 1 minute they were displaying speeds in kilometers per hour, the next minute they were displaying it in knots, and even some of the time they were confusingly displaying the number in knots, but the unit in kilometers per hour. I can kind of see why they were going with kilometers per hour. It does make the boats look faster, and because the numbers are bigger, it's actually clearer to see the speed differences between the boats. So for instance here, it's easier to see which boat is going faster. We can clearly see here that the Aussies are going 1 kilometre faster than the Brits, whereas if that unit was in knots, I believe the numbers would be the same, and you'd have to look at the decimal points to work out which boat was going faster. But using kilometres per hour wasn't very popular amongst the sailors watching. Who else found themselves doing this over the weekend? As always, interested in hearing your thoughts, especially if you're one of those rare breed of sailors who actually don't mind using kilometres per hour rather than knots. So now on to the big talking point of the weekend, the crash between Team Japan and Team USA and the subsequent capsize of Team USA. So this is a really interesting insight from Paul Campbell James appearing on the Mozzie Sails YouTube channel. Paul Campbell James, for those who don't know, is a very experienced wing trimmer, and he was sailing on the USA boat when this all went down. So let's listen to what he has to say.
So we crossed most of the way to the right, tacked in, and coming across on starboard. And literally the next thing we knew, I was flat on my face on the trampoline. You know, we saw the Kiwis crossing us, and then we literally never saw the Japanese, because there's a really big blind spot in these boats, just where you would get a port starboard, you know. And obviously when you're on port, you're looking down there to make sure no one's coming, and you know, to try and avoid anything. And yeah, I mean, we just literally didn't see them. Obviously watching the incident afterwards, you see when we crashed, none of us are even braced. You know, we're not like ready for impact. We just get thrown because we didn't see him there.
So I found that really interesting. It covers some of the points which I didn't go over on my capsize video. it does seem to give a fuller explanation of how things went wrong. And again, it seems the baby wings used on the Sunday were partly to blame. It was the first time these boats were racing with them, and that's why you saw lots going wrong on that Sunday for the boats. But in this case, it looks like the inexperience with the baby wings has actually resulted in the Japanese misjudging how quickly the USA would come out of their tacks. So Paul's saying here that the USA put in a very nice tack, and the baby wings allow them to accelerate out quicker than they usually would have done. Another interesting point he mentions is the visibility on these boats is really bad. You'll have noticed that none of the sailors were on the port side of the boat, which may have been lucky for them considering what happened. But yeah, none of the sailors were on the left side of the boat. So it does seem visibility is a real big problem in these boats, and I don't know what they can do to solve that.
Yeah, watching their video, obviously there was a bit of indecision. Having spoken to Chris a bit afterwards, because it's the first time we're using the little wings, everyone was amazed at the acceleration of them. So we obviously did a reasonably good tack and then just accelerated up to 35 knots way faster than they were expecting us to. So they kind of thought they were crossing, and then with our good acceleration, they changed their mind and were like, too late to duck, so we've got to tack here. But as you say, we were a little disappointed having watched their video that they didn't just crash tack. They kind of waited for the board to go down and everything. But yeah, I think that there was a little bit on their part that they thought we'd seen them and they thought we were going to avoid a little more than we did. But the fact that we didn't see them, yeah, it was, I think he probably could have turned faster.
Yeah, that's another interesting point. When you look at the footage, Japan don't crash tack it. It looks like if they crash tacked it, I reckon the collision could well have been avoided. But yeah, they decided not to, and we ended up with the most exciting event of the weekend. And I guess that's what SailGP and America's Cup and all this is about. It's about these exciting moments that we can all talk about afterwards. So although it sucks for both of those teams, and arguably it changed the event, making it easier for other teams to make the final, mentioning no names. But yeah, I think it's important we don't engineer too much of this drama out of the event. After all, that's a big reason many of us watch it. Right, on a bit in the video, this is just a short clip of Paul talking about the baby wings and how little the teams had used them.
Only 2 teams had used the small wing prior to that day. You know, so you think if everyone looked a bit ropey, it's because it was literally their first time out.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, the Brits had never used it and obviously sailed pretty well. The Australians used it for 20 minutes in our boat and capsized. I hadn't used it since New Zealand in 2019, and the Japanese never used it. So you think of those 4 teams. Yeah. The massive goal for the US team is to get into the top 3 for that final race, so then spin the dice from there. You know, we obviously didn't have the greatest of first regattas, but this year's points are for positions, not for points. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we didn't lose a lot of points on the other teams. So if we come out and win in Italy, which I think is achievable, then we'll be in good shape. Yeah, and actually, we've only got to be in the top 3 before that final. It's not like you need to be winning. You can be winning. You know, as Tom Slingsby showed, you know, he won 4 out of 5 races going into that final race, but didn't win overall. So.
Yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic. The individual events are sort of like a microcosm for the series as a whole. So the 3 teams with the most points at the end of the series will go into a medal race where there's this $1 million prize, and the winner will come out with the spoils. And theoretically, that winner could have won none of the previous regattas. Some people might argue that's unfair, but again, it will make for a very exciting finale. Finishing up, I just want to talk quickly about Ben Ainslie's comeback. It did look like he was out of it on the first day, but it was very impressive to see him come back. It really goes to show that no matter how bad your situation is, you can often dig yourself out of there, but that's very unlikely to happen if you write yourself off. You can say Ainslie had it a bit easier in that he only had to get in the top 3 to be in the final and win that final race, and it was helped by Team Japan taking out themselves and Team USA. But you have to give credit where credit's due, and Ainslie and the team showed noticeably better boat speed and boat handling on that second day. And I think that's what's so great about watching events like these. You've got such great talent, they've all got amazing psychology, so you can never write anyone off. On a related point, I remember Ian Percy and Andrew Simpson, who won a Star Gold medal. They had written on their boat every second of every race. And that was just to remind them that no matter where they are, in the regatta, in the race, They just have to keep to their processes and never switch off, because you never know when you'll get an opportunity. Because even if you don't expect it, opportunities will come along, so you just need to keep your head in the game. If you've got a huge lead in a race, you can't switch off. Likewise, if you're way behind in a race, there's often an opportunity to get back into it. So with that psychology lesson, I'm going to end the video. If you don't want to miss future videos like this, subscribe to the channel and press that alerts bell. Pressing the alerts bell will basically send you a notification every time I release a new video. So with that said, see you next time.